Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Before we get into today's episode, I have a quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying these episodes, please consider subscribing and sharing the channel with anyone who'd like it. Welcome back to the Treehouse Adventures. I'm your storyteller, Miss Samantha, and today we're reading the classic fairy tale Puss in Boots by Charles Perrault. So settle in, cuddle up, and prepare to be whisked away. Once there was a miller who left no more estate to the 3 sons he had than his mill, his donkey, and his cat. There was no money, so there was no point in sending for an attorney. The eldest got the mill, the second the donkey, and the youngest was left nothing but the cat. The poor young fellow was quite disappointed. "My brothers," said he, "may get their living handsomely enough by joining their stocks together. But for my part, when I have eaten up my cat and made me a muff of his skin, I will die of hunger." The cat, who heard all this but made as if he did not, said to him with a grave and serious air, "Don't worry yourself, my good master. You have nothing else to do but give me a bag and get a pair of boots made for me, that I may scamper through the dirt and the brambles, and you shall see that you have not gotten such a bad deal as you might imagine." The cat's young master was not convinced. However, he had often seen him play a great many cunning tricks to catch rats and mice, as when he used to hang by the heels or hide himself in the flour and make as if he were dead. So he thought, what was the harm in giving him a chance? When the cat had what he asked for, he booted himself very gallantly, and putting his bag about his neck, he held the strings of it in his 2 forepaws and went into a warren where there was a great abundance of rabbits. He put bran and sow thistle into his bag, and stretching out at length, as if he had been dead, he waited for some young rabbits, not quite acquainted with the deceits of the world, to come and rummage his bag for what he had put into it. Scarcely had he lain down when he had exactly what he wanted. A rash and foolish young rabbit jumped into his bag, and Monsieur Puss, immediately drawing close the strings, took and killed him without pity. Proud of his prey, he went with it to the palace and asked to speak with His Majesty. He was shown upstairs into the king's apartment, and, making a low reverent bow, said to him, "I have brought you, sir, a rabbit of the warren, which my noble lord, the Marquis of Carabas, for that was the title which Puss was pleased to give his master, has commanded me to present to your majesty from him." "Tell thy master," said the king, "that I thank him, and he does me a great deal of pleasure." Another time he went and hid himself among some standing corn, holding still his bag open, and when a brace of partridges ran into it, he drew the strings and so caught them both. He went and made a present of these to the king, just as he'd done before. The king, in like manner, received the partridges with great pleasure, and ordered him some money for drink. The cat continued for 2 or 3 months thus to carry His Majesty, from time to time, game of his master's taking. One day in particular, when he knew for certain that he was to take the air along the riverside with his daughter, the most beautiful princess in the world, he said to his master, "If you will follow my advice, your fortune is made. You have nothing else to do but go wash yourself in the river. In that part I will show you, and leave the rest to me." The Marquis of Carabas did what the cat advised him to, without knowing the why or wherefore. While he was washing, the king passed by, and the cat began to cry out, "Help! Help! My lord Marquis of Carabas is going to be drowned!" At this noise, the king put his head out the coach window, and finding it was the cat who so often brought him such good game, he commanded his guards to run immediately to the assistance of his lordship the Marquis of Carabas. While they were drawing the poor Marquis out of the river, the cat came up to the coach and told the king that, while his master was washing, there came some rogues who went off with his clothes, though he had cried out, "Thieves! Thieves!" several times as loud as he could. This cunning cat had hidden them under a great stone. The king immediately commanded the officers of his wardrobe to run and fetch one of his best suits for the Lord Marquis of Carabas. The king clapped him on the shoulder fondly, and the fine clothes he'd given the young Marquis fit him very well, for the young man was handsome. The king's daughter also noticed this and took a secret inclination to him, and the Marquis of Carabas had no longer cast 2 or 3 respectful and somewhat tender glances, but she fell in love with him to distraction. The king invited him into the coach to ride with them a while. The cat, quite overjoyed to see his project begin to succeed, marched on before, and meeting with some countrymen who were mowing a meadow, he said to them, "Good people, you who are mowing, if you do not tell the king that the meadow you mow belongs to my Lord Marquis of Carabas, you shall be chopped as small herbs for the pot." The king did not fail asking of the mowers to whom the meadow they were mowing belonged. "To my Lord Marquis of Carabas," they answered all together, for the cat's threats had made them terribly afraid. "You see, sir," said the Marquis, "this is a meadow which never fails to yield a plentiful harvest every year." The cat, who still went on before, met with some reapers and said to them, "Good people, you who are reaping, if you do not tell the king that all this corn belongs to the Marquis of Carabas, you shall be chopped as small herbs for the pot." The king, who passed by a moment after, asked the reapers to whom all the corn did belong. "To my Lord Marquis of Carabas," replied the reapers, and the king was very well pleased with it, as well as the Marquis, whom he congratulated. The cat, who went always before, said the same words to all he met, and the king was astonished at the vast estates of my Lord Marquis of Carabas. Monsieur Puss came at last to a stately castle, the master of which was an ogre, the richest that had ever been known, for all the lands which the king had traveled through that day belonged to this castle. The cat, who had taken care to inform himself who this ogre was and what he could do, asked to speak with him, saying he could not pass so near his castle without having the honor of paying his respects to him. The ogre received him as civilly as an ogre could do, and made him sit down. "I have been assured," said the cat, "that you have the gift of being able to change yourself into all sorts of creatures you have a mind to. You can, for example, transform yourself into a lion or elephant and the like." "That is true," answered the ogre very briskly. "And to convince you, you shall see me now become a lion." Puss was so sadly terrified at the sight of a lion so near him that he immediately scrambled for the gutter. Of course, the boots gave him quite a bit of trouble. A little while after, when Puss saw that the ogre had resumed his natural form, he came down and owned that he had been very much frightened. "I have been, moreover, informed," said the cat, "but I know not how to believe it, that you also have the power to take on the shape of the smallest animals. For example, to change yourself into a rat or a mouse. But I must admit, I take this to be impossible." "Impossible?" cried the ogre. "You shall see that presently." And at the same time he changed himself into a mouse, and began to run about the floor. Puss no sooner perceived this, but fell upon him and ate him right up. Meanwhile the king, who saw, as he passed, this fine castle of the ogres, had a mind to go into it. Puss, who heard the noise of his majesty's coach running over the drawbridge, ran out and said to the king, "Your majesty is very welcome to this castle of my Lord Marquis of Carabas." "What? My Lord Marquis?" cried the king. "And does this castle also belong to you? There can be nothing finer than this court and all the stately buildings which surround it. Let us go into it, if you please." The Marquis gave his hand to the princess and followed the king, who went first. They passed into a spacious hall, where they found a magnificent dinner set out, which the ogre had prepared for his friends, who were there that very day to visit him, but dared not enter, knowing the king was there. His Majesty was perfectly charmed with the good qualities of my Lord Marquis of Carabas, and as was his daughter, who had fallen violently in love with him, and, seeing the vast estate he possessed, said to him, after having drunk 5 or 6 glasses of wine, "That's it, I've decided. My Lord Marquis, you must be my son-in-law." The Marquis, making several low bows, accepted the honor which His Majesty conferred upon him, and forthwith, that very same day, married the princess. In turn, Puss became a great lord himself, and never had to run after mice anymore, but he still did so from time to time, just for the fun of it. What a clever cat. Using his wits and a bit of flashy clothing, Puss made the most of his master's dire situation. This story is also a good reminder that even if somebody's dressed the part, they may not be everything they seem. The king was convinced, but would you have been? Let me know by joining us on Facebook. And if you want to support our channel, please check out the Storytime shop linked in the description below. And as always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more classic fairy tales. I'll see you next Friday. Bye for now.